Hey folks, my favorite satellite tracking app, ISS Detector, just dropped a major update. But if you're not aware of the changes, it just may ruin your next satellite pass. Let's check it out so that doesn't happen to you this time on Digital Rancher. The ISS Detector app just got a massive facelift, and it looks incredible, especially if you use the app for general stargazing. But for ham radio operators, there's a gotcha that could ruin your next pass. If you've just updated, your custom satellite list may be gone. Today, I'm orienting you to the new interface, how to avoid the no satellite panic, and a pro tip for using AMSAT's status page to rebuild your list with all the active birds. If you're like me, you took a fair amount of time to set up all your ham radio satellites in ISS Detector. And when you log in, you see exactly what you expect. I've turned off a lot of the items I'm not interested in because I strictly use this for ham radio. And here you can see I've got many satellites configured. Now, when you do an update to the newest version of ISS Detector, this is what you're going to see. First of all, you can see they've turned on all the planetary bodies. No big deal, right? I see some Starlink. Okay, they've turned those on. I see the Chinese space station, and somewhere in here, I'm sure I'll see the ISS as well. But the point is, all of my ham radio satellites are gone. Now, the interface is very familiar, so you're not going to have any trouble navigating this. And when I hit the funnel to set what I want to see in the application, I can see ISS is turned on, the Chinese space station is turned on, but amateur radio satellites is off. Okay, maybe it's no big deal. Maybe I just need to turn that on. However, when I do turn it on and I go into select satellites, nothing is selected. All of my prior choices are gone. That can be a problem if you just grab your gear, run out to do a quick pass, and you're expecting your satellites to be configured in the app. Now, before we go much further, let's go ahead and get our satellites back in the application. Now, I'm going to use the AMSAT Oscar status page as a checklist to make sure I don't miss any of the satellites that I want to track in the app. Now, this is quite simple. I'm going to just click on the funnel, scroll down to the amateur radio satellite section. Now, keep in mind, this is a paid feature. The good news being that through the upgrade, if you bought it on an earlier version, you'll still have access to it. But if you don't have the ability to turn that feature on, it's because you haven't paid for it. All right. Oh, one thing I should also point out is this is now where you set the elevation threshold for passes that you want to see. So if you are in an area where you've got a lot of trees and obstacles on the horizon, you may want to set your elevation threshold to something that clears those obstacles so that you're not getting alerted of passes that you don't have an option or a really good ability to work. I'm going to go ahead and leave mine at 0. Out here in Texas, we can work a lot of those low passes, so I'm going to leave it just where it is. Now I'm going to jump into the list of satellites, and I'm going to just look at this Oscar status page, and I'm going to start searching for these satellites. And here I can see AO123 is one I want to track. So I just click from none to all, and it will start tracking that bird. Let's see what else I have on the list here. AO7's on the list. It is. AO73 is on the list. Let's see. That's all the AO birds, so that's good. Let me go down here and start to type in Botan. And there that is as well. And you can see you can work very quickly down the list here to repopulate all of the birds that are available. So let's see, Fox 29. Let's get that guy in here. Now you could leave any out that you're not interested in. If you're not interested in linear birds, if maybe you're only working the FM birds, you can just choose the FM birds, right? You can make your selections as you go. But the point being, the interface does allow you to move pretty quickly through the list. All right. So now that you have the idea, I can come back and finish these up later, and we'll let it start to populate. And hey, look, great. I'm starting to see some amateur radio satellites, and that is what I would expect. All right, let's see what else is new in the app. Let's just go in and take a look at the next pass in my area here. It's about 46 minutes away, and I like to work from the radar screen. And here's where I can also see another new difference in the app. So here I can see this arrow that appears to stretch as I change the angle of the phone. So when the phone is horizontal, it stretches out at its furthest point, and then as I raise the angle of the phone, it shortens that arrow. And this is a new method for trying to track the bird, right? So I may give that a try at some point, but my preference is to use the circle guide. So I'm going to come down here to radar mode and change that to the circle guide. And now I'm back to that familiar circle that I can use to track the object or the satellite in the pass. All right, so that's one major detail. Let's see what else we've got here in settings. Let's see. All right, here we can set our notifications. This is fairly similar to the way that it worked in the past. You can use the default beeping sound. I don't know if the default sound has changed. I haven't gotten that far yet, but it sounds like I can use a default sound or I can configure a custom sound. I don't believe I had a way to do that in the prior version. Still supports rotator control. And this is version 3.0. I think the prior version was a 2.5 something or other. So this is a major release. The other thing that I'll point out here is the Skydome view. Now, I don't use this when I'm tracking satellites, but it is kind of interesting if you're looking for items in the night sky. And how this works is as you raise the phone toward the sky, it'll give you a representation of all the objects in the sky. You can see there are outlines for constellations. You'll see planets, and then you can see it's pointing me in the direction of where the satellite path will be. Now, before we wrap up, let me show you a couple of other settings that I like to use when I'm setting up the app. First of all, since I am using the amateur radio satellites feature within ISS Detector, I turn off the satellites to track, being the ISS and the Chinese space station, outside of the amateur radio satellites. If you leave those on and you turn them on within the satellite group, then you will see them twice here in the satellite list, and that can be a little bit confusing. The other thing that I noticed here, which I think is a great feature, and I don't recall seeing it anywhere else in the prior version, is the ability to update your TLE data whenever you need to. So I'm just going to tell it I want to do a satellite data refresh, and now I know I'm working with the latest TLEs that are available. All right, one final quick look at how I set up IS Detector for my use with amateur radio satellites. Again, I turn off ISS and Tiangong, the Chinese space station, here at the top of the filters. I list all of my satellites in the amateur radio satellite section. I turn off famous objects, Starlink, comets, and planets. All I want to see are the amateur radio satellites. And one other thing that is useful here is this do not disturb option at the bottom. So that is how I like to have my objects set up. And then I will, just for ease of use, I will keep my time display in system default. You can change it to UTC or 24-hour or anything else if you choose, but it's just easiest for me to leave it at the system default. And again, I like using the guide circle in radar mode. Well, hey, look, I hope this helped you out. It certainly surprised me when, after the update, I pulled up ISS Detector and all my satellites were gone. Thankfully, I did that on the couch and not whenever I was stepping into a demonstration or going out to work a pass of my own. Sure, you'll be able to quickly recover, but depending on your situation, it could be difficult or it could be a surprise. So hopefully this helped each of you out. And ISS Detector is a great tool if you're not using it. Like I said, this is the first destructive update that I can recall. But this is a major version upgrade. We're going from 2.5 to version 3. So hopefully that won't be a common occurrence going forward. And we will have to wait and see. All right, folks, thanks for watching. And until next time, 7-3.